Right. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. It's a very snowy journey down to here, so thank you very much indeed for coming down to Aspen 3. We've got a very, very good panel for you with some excellent guests as well, and you're going to hear some very diverse views about bending the curve. Now, what are we talking about here today? I'll make this very short, my introduction, because these speakers are very eminent and they've got lots to say. How do we combine short-term climate action with our longer-term aspirations, our longer-term goals? How do we spur investment without compromising where we want to get to? Because we all know that we want to get to net zero. We want to get to some form of carbon neutrality, to true zero as well. And yet, there are many, many different paths to get to that way. Many different stakeholders have different journeys, many different countries, different companies as well. So how are we going to get there on this journey? A huge debate. If you ask 110 delegates here at Davos, what does the journey look like? What should the journey be? You'll get 120 different answers as well. We all know that as well. So it's about pragmatism. Or is it about pragmatism? Do we actually need to go full pelt for green technologies now as the only way to hit 2030 targets in order to save the planet from a disastrous climate event? Do we need to be pragmatic? Or actually, do we need to consider that there are other things going on? And my goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, the last couple of years have taught us all that there are a lot of other competing factors out there. Dare I say it, the poly crisis, word of the day, mot du jour here at Davos. All I keep hearing is about poly crisis, which is basically just everything that we've been worried about the last couple of years, all combined to make some really, really big concerns for everyone here to debate in Davos as well. What is the role of government as well? And we have Her Excellency here as well from the government of Pakistan to discuss what government can do and how government can work with the private sector as well. So I'm actually not going to talk for any longer now because what I really want to do is get this going and first of all speak to Her Excellency Sherry Raymond, who is the Federal Minister for Climate Change in Pakistan. Now, she's already said to me that she may well take the conversation in a different direction, but my goodness me, if any of us have seen anything worse happening in the world in the last year on the climate front than what those horrific events we've been seeing in Pakistan, then I think that buys you the right, Minister, to take it wherever you like. So just tell us what you think about the journey we're on, the role of transition technologies, the role of transition energy, and how Pakistan is making its journey despite all the terrible and horrendous challenges that are being faced by the country.
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you very much. First of all, yes, I am worried we'll skew the conversation, but then that's okay. Three things. We've already laid the ground for how I'm coming to you from the ground zero of an actual polycrisis where everything is hitting at the same time, and you're caught up in a race to attack or challenges that are leading one into another. Now, three things. One, you asked, where we can go with this. Governments obviously have a huge role to play in regulating the market, the business sector, and providing incentives from where I come from. And we are on a, I think, fairly ambitious track to a net zero or NDC frame, but all of that takes a huge pause. It takes a huge pause because 1.5 is what we have been talking about. That's the conversation that sets the public sector challenge, right? And that sets the global challenge. Paris is at 1.5, that's the goal. But 1.5, unlike what we said at COP27, is not alive. We are struggling to keep it alive, but it certainly is not. We are hurtling towards a 2.8 or 3-degree world. Now that's very scary. Why? Because it's a race against time for many of us, and simply because we experience the burn, the heat waves, much faster, harder, and in a kind of scale that I don't think the human race has seen. So this year, for instance, 2022, last year, we had no spring. We went straight from winter into summer, extreme weather. 4 heat waves, 53.7 degrees. That is not fit for growing anything, for living anything, or for water to even remain on the soil. So we're at a place where, and I think Somalia is too, we are in geographies of extreme vulnerability now, for whatever reason. And with not enough preparedness, the experience of climate change and global warming is very unlinear. So when you tell me that there's, we are committed to reducing global warming, and obviously the 1.5 goal is crucial, we are off that mark. And while I sit here in Davos and it's snowing, this brings me to the point that, I'm from the other 1%. Why I say that? This is the 1%, the arc of privilege we're sitting in. The other 1% is those that emit less than 1% and yet become one of the top 5 or 6 most vulnerable countries to climate stress. So we're experiencing it as a race against time, as a target, global warming target that's gone off mark. And we feel that, thirdly, we feel that a global reset is needed. Why I say that is because the preparedness, the commitments, the pledges, all of them tie up to compromises on ambition that are stated by countries, by businesses, by homes, generally everywhere. Those get compromised the minute there is a threat to our addiction to excess energy. And we have an addiction. The Industrial Revolution is where we define our counting, right? We count from the Industrial Revolution to 1.5. Well, that revolutions, as we know, devour their young. This one is an addiction to energy and consumption that is absolutely taking away the futures of those that live in this arc of vulnerability, and it is also taking away the future of your children. So that's my point of view. I think we are in a zone of speeding towards high heat and a planet that's burning up, and it will, or may be too late to change our addictions and our habits to energy consumption the way we do it. And because it's only going up, it's not going down, and it's not going up on renewables, it's going up on the bad energy.
Minister, before I get to these three very eminent gentlemen from the corporate world as well, I do want to ask you the very specific question is, what does the path look like in terms of transition and the technology that Pakistan is putting store in now to hit goals, potentially 1.5, if we are very lucky at some stage?
So we are forced to put in technologies and transition to renewables simply because our import bills for the fossil fuels are too high and they're crippling. Number one. Number two, the technology that you speak about, I mean, for instance, hydrogen or other cleaner fuels, very hard to access, no capacity to utilize or understand, and no investments, either public or private, in the tech sector that will come to a country that has 33 million affected. So we are in a trap of resilience and rebuilding. By the time we rebuild, we worry that we'll have another episode. Planning has gone out the window for many things, yet we are at this moment committed to electrification of 50% of our vehicles. We're in that process. Our buses are coming in. We are also committed to changing to renewables by 60% renewables by 2030. That's a very ambitious target. It's going to cost $101 billion just to do that. That money is not forthcoming. So that's where we are right now.
Thank you very much indeed. Amidst what is an extraordinarily tough story for Pakistan, you said one thing that encouraged me, and again, it was very, very tough story to listen to, 1,000-kilometre lakes being created, 50-plus degrees heat as well, hurtling to 2.83%. You said one thing that encouraged me, and that was you're being forced to look at renewables because of the crippling cost of hydrocarbons. And that's really good news, because that means that renewables are competitive. And that's the one bit of solace I took from what you said, Minister. I purposely did introduce everyone at the start because I want to get straight into this debate rather than the long, windy introductions, because we've already taken up 10 minutes. And I want to get straight to my second guest, who is Shinichi Miyanaga, who is the chairman of the board of Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. Every company has to go on a different journey as well to get to the end result as well. And you, sir, are going to tell us a little bit about the journey and how you see the use of technology now and where you want to get to ultimately using perhaps a leapfrogging from one technology to another.
I see. Thank you, Steve. yes, our company has a wide range of advanced products, advanced machineries, and utility plants and industrial plants. And many of those, the products, yes, emit the carbon dioxide and others. But I think because of such kind of history and our responsibility, we have been working very hard to develop the zero carbon, net zero emission technologies, a kind of the destination technologies like the hydrogen and the renewables and hydrogen, yes, utilization, the 100% hydrogen firing gas turbines and others. The gas turbine, for some purposes, it is essential equipment. And also to have as much as possible the smoother transition, the energy transition, we are developing the lower carbon, yes, emission technologies like the 30% already. We have achieved 30% hydrogen co-firing gas turbine technologies, and by 2050, we'll achieve, and we are confident, the 100% hydrogen, yes, firing gas turbine will be available. But I think it is very important to realize the green hydrogen or the close to green or blue hydrogen as a kind of the industrially affordable cost. And then so we are also investing in some of the research and development activities for such kind of the hydrogen generation process and so on, because it is our responsibility to think about. Of course, our technology area is a little different from such kind of area, but we do need to be interested. And I think another one is the energy transition is a very important part. But we need to be very careful of the steel plant and cement plant and aluminum plant, which is it is very difficult how to abate industries. It is very difficult to realize the net zero emission. But I think to apply the hydrogen based ion direct reduction systems instead of the natural gas based reduction system, we can lower the carbon dioxide emissions and so on. So I think it is, and on top of that, such kind of lowering technologies, lowering emission technologies, we do need to apply the carbon dioxide capture system, and capture and utilization is the ideal one. So we are developing the methanation process, and also sometimes it is very convenient if we have some available area for the storage, the carbon dioxide capture and storage system. Mm-hmm. So I think we are leading such kind of technology and improving our proven technologies as quickly as possible. That is our activities. Through such kind of activities, we do want to contribute to the very smooth and mild transitions and as the net zero emission society. So, and as a technological solution provider, it is very important for us to show technologically, at first, such kind of net zero emission society is possible.
Yeah.
And then we are confident to apply and pursue the other kind of social systems and the lower, cheaper hydrogen cost and so on. So this is our responsibility.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. And one thing that's come up, obviously, from both of our panelists so far is affordability, the cost of this transition. Before I get to Dolph, I'm going to just ask Lorenzo about some of the technologies and how the transition has looked, because you and I have been talking about this in various panels, at energy conference panels, and indeed at World Economic Forum for many years, actually. We started talking about this a long time ago, and the role of gas in transition as well, and how you can decarbonize gas and decarbonize a lot of these products as well. So Lorenzo, where are we at with the transition in terms of the appreciation of where we're at technologically, what we practically can do with gas and other technologies, and what we need to do next? And I guess I need to ask you, is gas still transition or destination?
Well, Steve, good to see you again. And Minister, thank you very much for your opening. And I think you characterized it well. We're not on a path to the 1.5 degrees Celsius. And in fact, it's closer to 2.2, 2.5. And it's clear that if we're going to bend the curve, which is the topic of discussion today, we've got to apply the technology that we have today. I'd remind everybody that an IEA study has already been performed that says you can achieve 40% of the Paris Agreement reduction in emissions from available technology today. We produce that technology. And when you think about valves that don't leak and actually retain the methane instead of exposing it, when you look at the upgrades that can happen in compressors and gas turbines, there is a lot that can be done today. Remote operations, taking away the CO2 and the emissions footprint from activity that's in the field. We can deploy this today, and we are deploying it today, but not enough and not at scale. And as we continue to go forward, there are improvements that are happening, and natural gas is a transition and destination fuel. And I know there's been a lot of commentary around natural gas in the past. However, if we look at the success of the United States and Europe in reducing its greenhouse gases over the course of the last 2 decades, it's thanks to transitioning from coal to gas. We are seeing incremental investments in gas as well as in LNG. They're going to take a few years to come on stream, but that's a huge opportunity while we bridge to then clean integrated power solutions such as hydrogen, such as being able to look at CCUS at scale. And these are things that, again, with the right investments, the right policies, we can get to. We have gas turbines that can run 100% on hydrogen today. It's not that is the issue. It's the whole infrastructure around it that we've got to establish, and also the policies. But we are making progress, but to bend the curve, we've got to start looking at 2030, not 2050. And we've got to start looking at the practical application of technologies we have today. And we have to accept that gas is part of the solution as we go to a destination fuel.
Okay, I'm going to come back at you briefly, because how many times have I heard your industry saying we have that technology available? How many times have I heard the industry saying we can stop methane leakage, the technology's there? I had conversations with you, with Martin Wetzler, with Ben van Beurden, with many, many people from the industry. Why have we still got methane leakage if it's such an ill for society and it's so easy to stop?
Because it comes down to also a just transition. And if you refer to the companies that you just mentioned, they actually are investing. If you look at flaring, many of the IOCs have reduced their flaring. If you look at the large NOCs, they've reduced their flaring. We have capability today, even as Baker Hughes, we have a technology called Flare IQ that can eliminate 95% of flaring. Countries that don't have the resources are still flaring. And so you've got to make sure that as you go through the transition, it isn't about the haves and the have-nots. It's about also making sure that there's the investment and the available capital for the deployment of technologies in areas that are still developing.
And once again, there it is, the affordability of countries and NOCs who are less fortunate than the big Western companies or the biggest NOCs such as Saudi Aramco to be able to do that and extract at the same time. Dolph, again, I haven't done the big introduction. You all know who these amazing people are as well. The important levers that need to be pulled this decade so that we can bend that curve. You've got some comments on this.
Yeah. So for us at Heineken, it's 3 things. It's why, what, and how. The why is abundantly clear, and just listening to the minister is another reminder of that. The what is also clear, and even if there's concerns about not being on the 1.5 degree path, as a company we still try to stay within. We made a commitment of net zero full value chain by 2040, 10 years earlier than the Paris Agreement prescribes. And then we said if we expect that from our full value chain, we need to lead by example for our scope 1 and 2. So we have set a target of net zero in all our production globally by 2030. That's 200 breweries in over 70 countries all over the world, not just in Europe, Northern America. This is more than 20 countries in Africa, more than 20 countries in Asia. Science-based, validated by SBTi. Now the big question is the how. And I think we need to move now also here in Davos, from declaring intent and talking in generalities to really figuring how are we going to do this. The way we went about it ourselves at Heineken is, over the last 18 months, we asked every single brewery director in each of these 70-odd countries to come up with a net zero path, a roadmap how to get your local brewery to net zero. 3 key takeaways. One is you really need to go to the local circumstances. The energy mix and system is different every single country. Our technology in our breweries, because these have been built at different moments, is different. Regulatory frameworks are different. So you really need to go into the specifics of local markets. The other thing is what's very relevant to us, and it may be relevant for others. There's a fundamental difference between electrical power and thermal power. It's like in your house. Your coffee machine, your refrigerator, you charge it with electricity. The heating in your home you do through gas. The same in a brewery. We use about 1/3 electrical power, 2/3 thermal power. The electrical power is actually a bit easier. The destination technology is known, it's solar and wind, and we're really starting to scale that globally. So you get these big purchase power agreements. The first we signed already 6-7 years ago. We do a lot of on-site solar in more and more countries. We just opened a huge solar farm in our brewery in South Africa. One problem is, I just had to check before coming here. In the 70 countries where we're operating, there's 20 countries that legally don't allow PPAs. It's just because of the state-owned companies, see it at competition, or whatever the reason may be, good or bad reasons. It's regulatory not possible to do PPAs. Even in some countries, on-site, which you would say, everybody should be happy with on-site solar, which we are financing, even that regulatory can be a problem. So one of the discussions we try to have, we just had a meeting with the IBC, is to really help countries around the world to exchange best practices in terms of regulation. Because the private money is there. There's private money willing to invest in solar, wind. There's the demand is there. We are willing to put long-term 10, 15 years commitment. Regulatory framework is not there. But this is the easy part, electrical power. The thermal power part, that's really hard. Because the destination technologies that the other panelists were talking about, green hydrogen, biomethane, that will really take time. At least it won't help us to go to net zero by 2030. So again, it's really brewery by country, very specific work to identify. One is reduce. By the way, that's maybe the biggest thing we all need to do is reduce energy, identify savings. It's amazing what's happening in Europe. We call it demand destruction, which sounds negative, but actually we're finding structural ways of reducing our energy needs. So that is one. The other one is electrifying part of your thermal need. Electrical boilers, heat pumps. There's a lot of development in that area. Another area where probably the technology is not very sophisticated and it is readily available is sustainable biomass. So for example, in Vietnam, there's billions of tons of rice being produced. And the rice husk, that is basically a waste that remains after the production of rice, the farmers are burning it on the field. We are buying up those rice hulls and we are burning it in our biomass boilers, generating sustainable biomass, 100% renewable right now in Vietnam. We're looking at spreading that technology from country to country. So we're really now mobilizing the energy in the company, and it's really bottom up. This is not some folks in the head office in the ivory tower. This is literally thousands of people in those breweries trying to figuring it out.
You've given some great examples of the differences in Western Europe and compared to emerging stuff. Thank you for that. Some great examples of some individual technology as well. I'm just going to say, before I ask Dolph one more question, then I'm going to go back to the Minister, because I want to talk about the private partnerships with government. What private sector wants from government, I'm going to ask all of you, and what government wants from private sector, because you want more Heineken-type companies in terms of just going out and being kind of almost doing it on their own without having to wait for government. But sometimes you can't do that in some industries as well. We are going to have questions from you, the audience, via Slido if you want. I'm very aware that we've got 19 minutes left as well, so it's already the time is going very, very quickly. But I think we've already seen some amazing examples of what needs to be done. So if you want to get involved, just start thinking about it, and I will try to get your questions near the end as well. So Dolph, what do you want from governments? You're working in all kinds of jurisdictions as well. You want a clear regulatory path, I guess, as well. That's what everyone wants. We want to know if there can be some more progress on carbon pricing. We want to know just what the ground rules are for the transition. You want consistent government as well. What specifically, though, would you add to that?
Look, carbon pricing would be amazing, because then the market will sort this out. But we're not going to wait for that, because that discussion, has been going on for a long time.
I was there before Le Bourget having that conversation with many peers of the oil industry as well, and it never happened.
What I really would, if there's one wish, it would be that kind of best practice regulatory framework that would allow, private-public cooperation, that would allow private capital to help generate renewable energy. Because the money is there, the investment is there, but you need a stable regulatory framework for it.
Minister, Pakistan is going through a horrendous situation, but can you provide that stable regulatory environment?
I completely agree with that. The stable regulatory framework is what will incentivize companies to come in. There are companies that want to come in green technology, but I think that, here's what I'm thinking. We're working in silos. We are working in a race against time. We've been talking about carbon pricing. There is no standardization. Now, if the best practices for regulatory frameworks could be shared across the board, and we do need to talk about the power and service of multilateralism. This needs to work through global governance frameworks. It will then become far more acceptable. It will become a regulatory practice that then countries will feel, governments will feel bound to work with. We have several, public-private partnership agreements. What it does is the creaky infrastructure of government gets sort of put aside. The management is by the private sector. We provide the heft. That kind of arrangement works. But what I'm still hearing is all of us talking in silos, and nothing will scale up to anything, to any of the goals we have set.
Minister,
why? If we talk as countries, as businesses only, the net zero for businesses, for say textiles, we're getting a good record with that. We have, we put them on a net zero Pakistan framework. So they work when they have an incentive. They work when they have a tax incentive. That's usually how businesses work, right?
What was COP21, COP26, COP27, if it wasn't about getting us out of our silos? Surely that's
but we're still in silos.
Why?
We are still in silos because the multilateral system is not able to overcome the nationalisms that rise up every time. There is now, there's protectionism rising its head all over the, just one tide of recession, and the return of geopolitics to Europe, or
so
war.
That's a very big conclusion already from this panel, that we need to get out of our silos as well.
Countries are going back to coal.
Yeah, Lorenzo, you're going to come
Europe.
in, and then Mr. Miyanaga coming afterwards. Lorenzo first, and then
I
you.
think there's a great example that's happening right now, and when you look at the difference between a carrot or a stick, if you look at the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed in the United States. That is a carrot.
That's a carrot.
And you are seeing a lot of activity spur from that. Or you can go the stick, a carbon tax, a price. At some stage, what the minister said is true. If we're going to have a solution towards globally getting to net zero, there needs to be a discussion across the harmonization of the way in which you use the different tools that we have so that everybody can achieve the end goal.
Yes, I think for the the carbon pricing and others, we do need to think about the difference in each the region by region, especially the some region like Europe. The industrial structure is quite different from the developing countries, and the magnitude of the carbon pricing is different. I think in the influencing the economy and the social welfare. So we do need to adjust and think about such kind of difference. And then I think it might be very important to compare what is the very fair or just evaluation of the burden of the carbon, the lowering the carbon dioxide emissions cost to the economy, and maybe some very the wealthy and also the advanced countries like which has already the established very efficient transmission and distribution systems, and in such case the incremental investment is rather small. But for the other countries, because to grow from now or on the development, in such case, I think we do need to think about how to make it much smoother to help the growth of such countries. That is very important.
Dolph, come in.
Yeah, may I build on that? This came up in another discussion. You have the Ease to Do Business rankings. I think the World Bank or the IFC publishes them. What if we would launch the Ease to Do Sustainable Business rankings, where you start benchmarking and providing transparency about, okay, is the regulatory framework there? Is the infrastructure being put in place? To incentivize, countries to come in a kind of positive competition of...
And that would actually in itself be a tide that raises all boats, and it would mean the less siloing of people's activities, because everybody would be looking at the best practice elsewhere. Should we start on the questions from the audience as well, because they're beginning to come through. So look, do you think destination technologies will be ready at scale in 5 years from now? Well, we'll go through this one. Who thinks that destination technologies will be ready at scale in 5 years from now?
Some destination technologies like the hydrogen firing and technologically in some scale, it will be
But
possible.
not green hydrogen, sir.
But I think the green hydrogen, it may take a little longer time.
Yeah.
But because of we do need to develop another kind of membrane and others, and I think it is a little difficult. But I think for some even with the current technologies, with very advanced or cheap, almost zero cost of electricity available. In such case, for some places, the green hydrogen may be viable, but I think it is a very limited case. So I think the green hydrogen, we will have to wait a little longer. But I think if we apply a little, very close to a kind of quasi green hydrogen, like the hydrogen made out of the natural gas with the carbon CCUS system. In such case, we can apply. And I think we should be very much practical and pragmatic for such kind of area.
Call for pragmatism from Mitsubishi.
I would just say, Steve, I think we've got to look at being fuel agnostic and emissions focused. And there's lots of technologies that are there today and also being developed. And if we decide to just focus on the emissions aspect and the reduction of emissions, you'll see the scalability of those technologies come faster. Some will take a little longer, but the energy mix will continue to evolve. It's not that in 10 years or 20 years, the energy mix will be static. We're going to see new evolutions that continue to come in place, as you've seen with nuclear, et cetera. So we want that to be non-time based, but again, let's focus on emissions and not the fuel type.
That's a very important point. If we could lose the top question, because we've answered that one, I want to see what that bottom one says as well, a bit about intolerance. Dolph, which kind of ties into where you're at. You're talking about pure green technologies when you were talking about thermal powers, sustainable biomass, electrification, heat pumps as well. So I guess we're answering that bottom question and responding to what Lorenzo just said there. Fuel agnostic and emissions focused is what Lorenzo said. But the point there is that no, we need to be intolerant of businesses and industries with known decarbonisation pathways, but which are not acting as well. So, I mean, I hear what Lorenzo's saying, and it makes a lot of sense as well, but how do you feel about being agnostics about the fuel sources themselves?
So our experience is, in the end, it's not one thing or the other. And the same brewery in one country or another may use a complete different way of getting there.
Right. So you are fuel agnostic?
We are solution agnostic, and it's really custom designed to the local circumstance. I'm intrigued by the question, because it's time to be intolerant of business. We're not.
I think it probably means with no known no, it means with you know the way forward, you know you can do it, but you're just not moving.
Yeah. But we try to be on the right side of things, so I don't find that I should take it personal. But I do worry about that we're always looking for the villain, always rather than unleashing the forces of good. What I find really interesting, over the last 2-3 years, you really started to see investors change. And I really believe over the next couple of years, your cost of capital will be lower if you're doing the right things on ESG. So it creates a positive incentive to do the right thing. I think, and that's a little bit the IRA. Yeah. It's the carrot. It tries to unleash us the creative, imaginative forces. Ultimately, I believe more in that than rather just go after the bad guys.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, because the initial response from the EU, wasn't it, from Valdis Dombrovskis, and I think I'm interviewing, so I better be careful, but it was actually, no, we need to kind of think about what punitive stance we need to take back at the USA for doing this, which is going to be bad for our European companies and our European focus. But actually then wiser voices now, including Mr. Dombrovskis, are now saying, well, actually, no, we need our own version. So that's that positive feedback loop, Minister, that you were talking about, that actually we get out of our silo, someone shows best practice, and then we can all move forward, no?
Well, I mean, you said something, you just mentioned doing the right thing. There's clearly a moral imperative here, is there not? Because you're saying doing the right thing. And then, of course, we have to talk about carrots and sticks and all that. But seems to me that the moral imperative just is not enough. So you'll have to create clear incentives and penalties, because this is not working. I mean, this whole conversation, I'm really encouraged to hear business leaders thinking this way, but I think it's not up to businesses alone. And you have to go back to a structure that creates a level of carrot and stick structures, penalties, incentives for governments, and then the intolerance word is very important. How do you deliver that intolerance? What is your instrument of intolerance? Outrage on social media? Talking down at companies?
Well, the intolerance comes in terms of the investors not being available for those, I guess.
But the investors continue to be available. Here's the reality check here. As long as investors continue to be available and our addiction to carbon is growing, it's not going down, it is just growing. On a large scale, on a big trajectory. So while that continues, investors are not going to discourage en masse or large scale turn down. They're not going to bring
Let me
this
just
down.
ask that question then, which is startling and worrying, and flies in the face slightly of what you said earlier, Lorenzo, because you said actually our energy mix is going to change.
And I do want you, excuse me, to address that first question.
I'm going to get there in a second. You'll get first crack at that one.
Yeah, I'm going to take a crack at that.
It's glaring at us, isn't it? It's glaring at us, and
away.
it's for you to answer. But look, are we going the wrong way on carbon? I mean, for all of the amazing conversation we've had so far about these amazing technologies, the carrot and stick, the affordability, are we actually increasing our addiction, as you put it, to energy?
It is.
How does the panel feel about
Look
that?
at the data.
We have a challenge with population increasing
Well, not in China, according to the latest detail.
globally. Also, if you look at from developing nations, there is a need for more energy. It's well known that energy demand is increasing. So you've got the challenge of an energy demand increase and having to also successfully complete the transition, which is why the fuel agnostic but emissions focus is so important, because we're going to need a full array of capabilities. Technology is starting to be developed. Do we have to go faster? Yes, but we need that ecosystem of stakeholders together to make it work. You've got some great examples from Heineken, what they've done as a company.
Yeah.
You've got great examples, Baker Hughes, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. But at the end, we're just one of examples. You need to scale those examples up, and that's where what the Minister says with regards to discussion is important.
If I get a brief answer from you, sir, and then we're going to go back to the question that's glaring at all of us on top of the Slido.
Yes. I think I should say the top management of the private company, but I think as this climate change and net zero emission efforts is a worldwide and a huge problem and task for us. And we should not blame someone, because who are seen a little delayed or what, we should think they are making their best efforts. And sometimes the leaders or the innovators and others may not be, rewarded financially very well, but I think it is the responsibility, and in return, it is the honor and happiness to be a leader of the technology and to be the system developer and inventor. And that is the honor of the company. And also the supporting government, each other, is another, respectable of the organizations.
I think that's a really good point, sir, and something that's lost on a lot of business leaders sometimes. Actually, just doing the right thing brings its own rewards.
Yes.
Minister, you get the final point on should emerging economies use coal and gas until they are developed.
No, I want to ask you.
Me?
Why do I get the final point? No, you gentlemen answer that question.
Oh,
What's
okay. I
happening
thought
in
you
the
wanted to
world?
answer. Okay,
no,
right.
No,
well,
no. I'm asking you. I'm putting you on the mat.
Well, there we go then.
Yes.
Dolph.
It's a devilish dilemma, right? Because on one side, every coal we burn, we know it's incredibly bad, and at the same time, who are we to block developing countries from developing?
Yeah.
So I find it very hard to answer that question.
Good for you.
Lorenzo?
I would agree it's very hard to answer that question. I think we've got to do a better job with the developing and emerging economies so that we can enable them to have cleaner energy. And that means also from an infrastructure, and it's not fair that countries that have had the opportunity to have energy and abundant energy deny the same access to others, but we've got to do it in a just and fair way.
And then this is the point of WEF, isn't it? It's for too long, WEF and international organizations have told the world what to do.
Here's what can be done. Use every meeting as a call to action. If developing economies, and they do, obviously need to use coal, they need to use dirty fuel for development, and the historical emitters, the other emitters, those that have made the 99%, we're still under the 1%. We're saying that 1%, not the 99, needs to move the resources to the under 1% to make those transitions. Right now, no one's doing that. So all this is pie in the sky until then.
quite extraordinary. Look, I know we've gone over already a little bit, but I'm going to just say to the panel, I'm just going to name them all once because they've been brilliant. And then we're going to get closing remarks from Pedro Gomez from WEF as well. Many, many thanks. Shinichi Miyanaga as well.
Yes,
Lovely to meet you, sir, as well. Lorenzo, always a pleasure. I know we're going to meet again soon in Italy, which I'm very much looking forward to discuss many of these kind of issues. Dolph van den Brink, it's always a pleasure, sir. Thank you for some really concrete ideas of what you're doing and how you're doing it different ways in different countries. And I think that's really important to know as well. And a special thank you to Her Excellency Sherry Raymond as well, because you have made this a very real debate, and that's very important for the World Economic Forum as well. Pedro Gomez is going to make some final comments.
Thank you very much, Steve, and of course, thank you to all the panelists. I think you have facilitated a very productive exchange. I hope this is one of the most consequential discussions we have during this week in Davos. We've heard some of the answers to the challenges and opportunities we have if we want to bend the emissions curve today. We also have some questions that are left unanswered. I think that's okay, but I think they need to be treated as a call to action.
Yes.
Here at the World Economic Forum, we are keen to be part of the solution. What I offer here now is that we're going to be following up with each and every one of you, but more importantly, we're going to be leveraging the communities we have in this place. We have communities across industries, across stakeholder groups, and it was mentioned a number of times, these issues are too complex. No one single organization or stakeholder group in isolation can afford to can actually drive the solution. We need an all-hands-on-deck approach to solve this matter. And if we are working together, we don't need to work to be rowing in perfect synchrony. But at least we need to go in the same direction. And I think we have an opportunity to bend the emissions curve today. Thank you so much for everyone's participation.